Well, hello, shell buddies. Welcome back to the channel. So we are right in the middle of our epic shelling post Idalia series. And I got to think, geez, if I wait till the end of this thing to wrap it all up, it's going to be a month since you saw us pick up some of these shells. So instead of waiting until the end to see the whole haul, we're going to stop for a minute and take a look at some of the really, really incredible stuff that we found. And we're going to take a look at Hurricane Idalia as she unfolded and some photos and news clips that we had from during the storm, so you get an idea of a really better sense of the timeline of what was going on. Now, while Idalia was going on, I really, obviously we couldn't go anywhere, especially not with the storm surge the way it was right after it got past us and remained high all the way through Wednesday, and things didn't even open up on the bridges to get to the barrier islands until Thursday. So far you've seen shelling from Sunset Beach and Paso Grill from that Thursday, and Lido Key, and what a terrible mess Longboat and the south end of Coquino were in part 2. So today we're going to take a look at some of those shells that we found at Paso Grill, Sunset Beach, Lido Key, and a few of the things we picked up over at Longboat, which admittedly wasn't a lot. There was hard urchins and a few sand dollars and a couple fossils, but we really didn't shell much there. So let's go take a look a little bit at Idalia, the timeline, and we'll talk about that timeline as we kind of progress through it from the night before to Wednesday, while, really it was late Tuesday into Wednesday all day, and then the storm surge tide, the king tide, all hit together. So this is the time leading up to when you saw me doing beach reports and when you saw me going out and trying to get out to places. And then that first day on Thursday, and then on Friday when we could get out, you've seen those videos already. Now, for part of this video, we're also going to talk a lot about cleaning, and cleaning in different kinds of shells, different ways to clean them, and I'm going to use more than one version here, as you're about to see. So we're going to talk mostly about soaking, bleach rinsing, and a little bit of muriatic acid dipping as well. And we're also going to go over how to clean up those sand dollars and hard urchins and getting them looking a little better than they do when they come off the beach, with something super, super simple that you probably already have in your cabinet at home right now. Okay, so the timeline. By Sunday night, we knew Idalia was going to make its way not only into the Gulf, but be going past us probably. And with the forecast track uncertainty that we had during Ian and how much it moved, we were a little more nervous for this one because we knew that it may actually come closer than what they were telling us on Sunday. Things could always change. But at this point on Sunday, Idalia really wasn't all the way kind of together. She really didn't have all her strength gathered. She was working on that, though. And she gets her act together on Monday and then goes zipping by us during the later hours of Tuesday.
Looks like Mexico,
and that's what we were dealing with at the end. We got a side swipe, not a direct hit. So on Monday, it was all out gangbusters. Every stitch of laundry, gassing up the tanks of the vehicles, making sure we had propane, all of that stuff. On Tuesday, she got it together. You can see here coming up in the picture, this is 8 o'clock in the morning, and then come 1 o'clock in the afternoon, look how much better organized it was. There she is, that bitch they called Idalia. Rain should be here in under an hour, and the squirrels are still collecting nuts and bouncing the acorns off the roof of the carport. Here we go again. Last of the laundry is drying, all of the water is filled. Everything's buttoned up, and now we just sit and wait. So we ended up getting rain probably a little after 2, and as you can see, during the afternoon on Tuesday, Idalia's really, really getting it together and moving closer to us. By about 7 o'clock that night, we see a very classic storm look. There's 10:15 p.m. We're really in the rain bands at this point, and the coastline is just getting hammered with those waves and tides. As we're getting ready to go to bed that night, the wind was whipping, it was raining pretty hard, but it wasn't an Ian-like kind of a thing where we weren't getting the insane winds. We were getting good winds. I mean, you could see it blowing the rain right across the street here, and the trees bending in it and what have you. But it was a little better for us being 3 or 4 miles inland than it was, say, right directly on one of the barrier islands, for example. And this is where the tide situation starts setting up. And at this point, in Tuesday night going into Wednesday, when we're going to be approaching a low tide, we had a tide that didn't actually go down at all. So we ended up having no low tide and the tide going higher.
So it won't fill you with, but this is the worst part of it. On the northern side of the eye, that's where they have the strongest winds and the highest amount of rainfall. So if you are looking for those 125 mile per hour winds, you're getting them in Perry right now on the northern side of that eye as everything moves in a counterclockwise fashion. So again, it's 7:45, less than about 8 minutes ago, we had a landfalling major hurricane in the state of Florida, Taylor County, Keaton Beach.
And we have a
right
band
here,
hitting us right now as it hits there.
That is.
The rain bands were all we had to deal with on Wednesday, so we were thinking potentially we could go out and take a look at things on Wednesday, not realizing how bad the tide situation actually was. The barrier islands all around the entire coastal area where we are, see where all those red dots are, everything around Tampa, all those barrier islands were closed. Sun's just starting to come up and we're just now starting to be able to see if things are damaged. I've got a neighbor whose window awning got wrecked. Been flapping around, and the fence on the back side of our park is completely down behind that 1 yard. I don't know if it's because they left all those vines all over it and it added extra weight, but we woke up, we had no internet and cable, but we still have power and we still have water, so we hope we'll be past the worst of it by lunch. Stiff. So at this point on Wednesday, we're now realizing that the crap kind of hit the fan. The storm surge was worse. We never got a low tide. We got an excessive storm surge plus a king tide. The barrier islands did not open again until Thursday for Paso Grill and Sunset Beach, Friday for Lido Key, St. Armands. So we got out there, and here's what we got. We are taking a look at some of the sand dollars here that we acquired. Most of these sand dollars and these sand dollars, and a few other things, came from Sunset Beach. And as you can see, they've been sitting outside for a little while now, so some of them have lightened, but some of them still got kind of that funky color on them for kicking around the bottom for a while. So we're going to go ahead and use hydrogen peroxide, plain old regular hydrogen peroxide, 3%, full strength, and let them sit in the sun. And that's a more gentle option for getting them clean and white again. So we'll go ahead and get these started in just a second, and then we'll check back on them in a little while. Just regular, plain old 3% hydrogen peroxide. Not mixing it with water either. Just going right straight on them. And I've done this in the shade, and I've done it in the sun. Frankly, I think it works better in the sun. Think about it the same way as like how the sun in hair dye, for example, works. Put a little spritz of that stuff on your hair, you go out to the ocean and you turn your hair blonde because peroxide's a mild bleach. Well, that's what we're basically doing to these sand dollars, but we're doing it in a more gentle way than using actual, Clorox on them. Because if you let them sit too long in that stuff, that will eat right through their shells. The peroxide's a lot more gentle. And you can see some of these little guys are foaming up and stuff like that already. You can see things are starting to happen over here. Look at that foam already on these. Okay, so I was kind of a little afraid of them falling. I'm moving them over here to the ground. But look at the color already in that peroxide, just straight peroxide. So it's taking the yuck out of these guys, definitely. So I've got about, I don't know, a whole bottle pretty much. I'm just putting the whole bottle right in. And you know, we'll stir them around occasionally today and through this evening if we don't have to pull them sooner than that, and get them nice and cleaned up. Now for the harder part. Okay, so all of our little trips that we've taken since Idalia, you'll see things are bagged and dated when they were found, where they were found, so that I could keep all this stuff straight. So there's Lido, there's some of the Sunset Beach. We've got some urchins in there that need some cleaning out too. And we got here Longboat Post Idalia. And then I want to say, I think these are our heart urchins. Looks like a few of them might have fallen apart in the bag, which that was happening the day we were finding them anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and put the ones that are intact in the hydrogen peroxide solution with the sand dollars, since their tests are almost the exact same as what the sand dollar is as far as strength and durability and what have you. Alright, so it's only been a few minutes since this stuff has been set out here, and you can already tell. Like, look at this. Things are starting to lighten up already. Alright, so here's our hard urchins that mostly survived. Quite a lot of them did not. They're super duper fragile. They're even harder to get home in one piece than sand dollars are. So we'll get some peroxide on these little guys. Set them right in here with the sand dollars. Oh, hi, little lizard. There's a little lizard running around over here. What a cutie pie. Oop. I'm going to put a few of these over here. Make a little more room for the hearts. And all I'm really trying to do is I just wanted stuff to have peroxide on it. It doesn't necessarily have to be sitting underwater in it. The sun and the peroxide, whether it's sitting in it or been soaked in it, it'll work either way. Sometimes it works a little faster with it in the bowl, but... And when you do this, it's better to have a clear container. You'll notice I'm using just a thing from like the bakery. I don't know, we got biscuits in it or something like that, rather than a harder bowl. That allows the sun to get to everything and lighten them all up. So our sand dollars here and hard urchins have been sitting for about 45 minutes to an hour or so. You can see that there's a discoloration now in the peroxide. I put 2 bottles of hydrogen peroxide, one on each side, and you can see what a difference it's making on the sand dollars. Oh my gosh, look at that. Like, this is what it was and this is what it's getting to. So it's really getting these cleaned up quite nicely. Looking good. So I'm just gonna flip them over and change their positions a little bit. Make sure their fronts and their backs get a good soaking. And look at the hard urchins, how much cleaner and whiter those have gotten already as well. Look at that. How nice and white that one actually is. That one's in one of the better shaped ones that we brought with us home. Made it. And they're hard to keep in here because they want to float. But yep, peroxide's doing the trick, and it's been a very short period of time, but just setting them out in the peroxide in the sun, making a really, really big difference in getting them a lot cleaner. So wow, I let these stay in that hydrogen peroxide overnight just to see how much cleaner they would get, and look at the difference from yesterday to today. Absolutely stunning how nice these are coming out, and how how much nicer they are than we originally first thought because they were so gray. So that's great. These look great. I'm going to leave them a little bit longer. A couple of them are still a little dark in the middle. And then we'll rinse them with water and set them in the sun to dry. So let's revisit these sand dollars that we did. Okay, just for a reminder, that's what they looked like when we found them at the beach. Kind of greenish, grayish, brownish. Not looking like a pretty sand dollar. And overnight, soak the 3% hydrogen peroxide solution. Did an amazing job cleaning them up. Did a really nice job on these guys too, but boy, they were so weak that a few of them kind of disintegrated. So really, all we ended up getting out of them that were keepers were like 3 of them, and the rest of them are all kind of broken. That's okay. I imagine we'll find some more. In the meantime, we still have this peroxide solution over here, and I started throwing some more sand dollars into it. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw these guys in there. It should still be good. I mean, it's still foaming, so as long as it's foaming, that means there's still something in there that's active and doing its thing. So, yep, here these go. These guys are going in here now, too. Ooh, some of these really weren't worth keeping, but that's all right. We'll just go ahead and peroxide them all and see what we're left with when all this is said and done. But leaving them in the sun seems to help speed it along. You can do this in a shady spot, but it'll take a couple of days. It'll take a little bit longer. The something about them being in the sun with it being warm seems to really kind of activate this cleaning ability. It'll also turn the tips of my fingers white after having put them in here. So it's not going to hurt me or anything like that. It's just hydrogen peroxide, but... And yeah, peroxide, man, this is the way to go with the sand dollars. No work whatsoever. Just put them in, set them, and let them go. Don't have to do anything. Just leave them in the sun. Got a lot of really cute little tiny ones there that day. That was nice. Super cute. All right. There's the rest of the sand dollars from sunset. We'll leave those today and into tomorrow in that peroxide mixture. See how they do and what we're left with when we get done tomorrow. Okay, so here we have sea urchins. Now you guys know from some past videos that I've done, usually we like to just get that Aristotle's lantern out of there and let them sit and let the ants do their thing. So these have been sitting in this bag for a little bit now, so the ants can do exactly that. So today, these things are just going to sit tight, but oh, look at the color on that. That's a stunner with that pink and purple on there. Wow, that's beautiful. Some tan and green ones are kind of like really kind of cool too with the lighter needles. Oh yeah, that nice purple one back there. So yeah, I'm not going to do much with these today. They're just going to sit back here. I also noticed that I think a critter, maybe a kitty cat, got into this and the hard urchins and broke a number of them that were still in okay shape, so we don't have very many hard urchins left. So, these 3 bags of things are all going to go in a bucket of bleach water right here. And I'm actually going to separate them in some different little mesh bags, clean the shell bags at the same time as we clean the shells because they get a little ripe as well. And all I'm going to be using to do that is plain old bleach from the dollar store. It doesn't have to be fancy Clorox, it doesn't have to be anything. I'm going to put some bleach in a bucket with the water and let these guys soak for probably a day. Alright, I'm not sure if this is going to show well on camera. It shows great to my eyes, but The more you use your shelling bags, the funkier they tend to get. Now these three, you can see their colors are pretty vibrant. They're in pretty good shape. They're not stained. I don't use these very often because they're not very big. I tend to use the bigger bags with the zippers. And as you can probably tell, these are kind of grimy. So to clean my bags and my shells at the same time, you see I've got some painter's tape and I've marked it with a Sharpie on the bag where this particular little pile of stuff is from. So I'm going to separate these plastic bags into these bags and then clean my shells and my bags with bleach water at the same time. Alright, so here you see we have our bags that we're going to clean along with the shells at the same time. So all these things are separated out. And all I'm doing is getting some water in the bucket and I'm going to put some bleach in with them. Let's get the bleach open and ready. So this is a 5-gallon bucket, but I'm guessing there's probably 3 gallons of shells in here. So it won't be 5 gallons of water that we're putting in. And I'm pretty heavy-handed with the bleach. So I'm going to say we're going to have 2 gallons of water in here, and I'm probably going to put 2 to 3 cups worth of bleach in it, because I want to really bleach these things good. The reason I use a little more bleach on post-storm shells is, you know, a lot of things get washed into the water that aren't necessarily just about dead sea critters, and I don't want to, I don't want to take any chances. I leave stuff out for a number of days in the bags before I even touch them to let things dry off, let ants do what they're going to do. But, yeah, you want to give stuff after a storm in particular a really good cleaning. Okay, so there's a couple of cups of bleach. And I'm going to let this stuff sit in here for a few hours at least, if not for the rest of the day. Now here you see me taking a pick to some of the operculums that had some oysters and other goodies on them. Because these operculum are not really as tough as the shells, I was a little leery of maybe touching them with the Dremel or anything like that. But soap and water isn't going to be enough to get off oyster pieces either, clearly. So gently using my pick as sort of like a scraper, I'm kind of popping little pieces and little sections of these oyster pieces and these barnacles and things like that right off the operculum just to clean that junk up off of there. Then, after they've had a wash and dry with some soap and water and some kind of gentle cleaning, I will go ahead and use a wire brush attached to my Dremel on a slow speed to just sort of scuff off the rest without really doing any big damage or anything like that to the operculum. Because of what they're made out of, because they're not made of shell, they don't hold up really for bleaching or soaking in bleach water or dropping in any kind of acid, anything like that. Operculums have to be treated with a little more care than our shells would. Otherwise, they're just going to disintegrate in the bucket and you won't be able to keep it. But you can pick off all this stuff if you're gentle and careful with it. Now we have a couple of special things that got found that day at Pasa Grill. One of them being all of these baby's ears. Look at this. Look how tiny. Oh my gosh. So we had some really cute ones in here, some littles, and then there's a couple of bigger ones underneath these smaller ones. I'm not going to acid these. I'm not going to etch them. They're clean. They're in beautiful shape, and they're a fragile shell, so they're going to be left alone. Now these guys here, I don't really want to soak these in bleach water because this piece is the operculum to a shell, and this is sort of like it's keratin kind of. It's kind of like your fingernails. And if you let them soak too long, they get kind of torn up, and some of these are a little torn up already. Now, I can clean them off with the Dremel if they're in good shape. If they're in ratty shape, I probably won't be able to keep them. We'll just give them a little scrub with some soap and water and a little hit with the Dremel to get some of that crusty stuff off of there. And then they get soaked up with a good couple of coats of coconut oil to sort of restore their color and their texture and what have you. So these are operculums from actually large whelk shells. That's what these guys are. And we've got 24 of them here at least. I can't believe how many of those things we found that day. Normally, you might find 1, maybe 2 on a shelling trip, not 24. So that was pretty epic. Here's 2 more relatively rare finds for our area, for me especially. This is a Scotch bonnet, and it is in horrendous shape. But we don't very often find Scotch bonnets around here at all. That's kind of a panhandle thing. We don't get them that much here on the Southwest Florida Gulf Coast, so when I saw it, I was kind of stunned. Now, it's in horrible shape. It's not good for anything but maybe being used in a shadow box of some kind. But still, it's a Scotch bonnet, and I was happy to find it because I just don't find them all that often. So that was pretty awesome. It's the only second one I've ever found. This is a stunner. This is the operculum from a moon snail. Remember, it looked like beach glass when I picked it up. So after sitting in the bag a little bit, some of the fragile areas around here chipped off a little bit, but it's mostly still intact. All I'm gonna do is give that guy a rinse and oil it up and put it on my shelf because it's such a rare find for me to find a moon snail operculum #1 and #2, one that size. I mean, that's off a pretty huge critter, so very excited about that little find. It's not, looking awesome right this minute, but I'm gonna clean that edge up a little bit and get it on the shelf, put it in a little glassine envelope on my shelf and preserve it because it is so spectacularly rare to find one of these. So we got a lot of shells here for South Lido, post Idalia on the Friday following this storm. Let's just pan back here and take a look at all these goodies. And let's get started. Well, first you can see we have a really nice selection of fighting conchs here. We have knobbed varieties, and we have knobless varieties. So we've got a number of these. A few of these appear to be fossils as well. These guys here. Possibly this one. This one I think is just very beach and surf worn. But it's got almost no color left to it at all. So I thought that one was kind of neat. And it was neat because it was a knobless one. Over here we have some really nice egg cockle examples. Got some chestnut turbans here. Look how small that little guy is. How cute. This is an eastern white slipper snail. Another little tiny here. We have a marginella shell. Cute, cute little tiny shell there. And we've got some Dulcineas here. Sailor's ear. Some jingles. Broken limpet. Some bubble shells. This little guy we'll talk about in a minute. These are common nutmegs. This is actually a top snail. This I thought was a top snail until after I looked at it, and it's not. Womp womp. It's actually the top off of a cantharus shell. We found some alphabet cones out there that day too. John found a couple of really nice ones and an old beat up one. And then I found this little guy, which I'm gonna have to look up. He's not quite the right shape for a Florida cone. He's not the right shape for an alphabet cone. So it could be a Stearns or a Jasper, I'm not sure. It's hard to tell when they're really small. That's a top off of an alphabet cone. A couple of button snails. Here we have some worm snails. A little chunk of worm colony base. And these are our West Indian worm snails here. The Florida ones don't get that nice even coil to them. some broken crown conchs and a nice white coquina. Beautiful little calico clams here. We got some augers and some sereths. Some scallops, and that one was really old and discolored, and I just really liked it. I thought that was neat, so I brought that guy home. And some broken banded tulips, little apple murex here. It was really decently nice. It's a great little shell. Lots and lots of whelks, mostly small ones, and then a couple of broken bigger ones that I plan to cut down. But oh my gosh, are those not the cutest thing ever? I just love baby whelks. They're so sweet. And this broken piece of this one is going to get cut and shaped. But I love that that whorl off the top of it and that patterning. I thought that was really pretty. So that's going to get made into a pendant. And we have a couple of spiny jewel boxes here. These guys are a little lumpier than spiny, but these guys are pretty spiky. They're nice. We got a surf clam, a big white base scallop, and we've got some turkey wings over here. A few different kinds of coral, some of it old, some of it modern. And then moon snails and olives. And as you can tell from looking at this table, this is what Lido Key is best known for. Moon snails, olives, and fighting conchs. You will find the occasional whelk there, you will find the occasional cone there, but that's what the bulk of what we find down at Lido is usually this stuff right here. And as you can see, we've got a great variety of sizes from this little tiny guy all the way up to some of those big monsters up in the back row. They're pretty cool. And some of these moon snails are in great shape, some of them not so great. That's okay, because I take and cut them down for embroidering around anyway, so I don't mind that. But if you're looking for you know, a nice moon snail, I'm sure some of these probably wouldn't appeal to people, even though I pick them up because I have a use for them. And we also have a little difference in coloration going on here too. There we have the shark eye, the Paul Newman with the blue in the middle. Here's our typical moon snails here. So that was kind of nice to have a Paul Newman or two in this little collection. And then see some of these are red or like a purplish color almost. Sometimes when they're worn down, they'll get like a creamy orange in them. That's really pretty too. So yeah, lots of stuff for me to have fun with here. Now let's talk about this little guy. And I'm not even sure he's going to show up in focus. Frankly, I'm not even sure how I spotted this guy, but that is a Tampa turd. This is a really cool shell. We don't see them very often, and you can kind of tell by looking at a sereth, which would be similar to it. I mean, a sereth is not all that dissimilar, really. They're dark brown, and they have some kind of little lumps and bumps on them on the outside. But the turd is going to be shorter and squatter with a different shape in the opening, and it's going to be this dark brown as opposed to the splotchiness that a dark sereth will have. So the Tampa turd was a really cool find that day, and I was pretty excited about that little guy. He's going in a little jar and on my shelf. Now right now, I have a rough idea of a couple of things I'm going to do with some of these shells, but not very much of it involves jewelry right now. I actually am going to be doing a shadow box with shells from Lido. And I want to make the outline of Lido Key with it. So I'm not going to pull anything for jewelry out of this batch, but I am going to take a couple of these things and dip them, just like I'm going to do with some of the shells from Sunset Beach. And I'll just explain why. Let me take this guy here, and this one over here. I mean, these are turkey wings, and they're really pretty nice turkey wings, but they dulled out after they got washed. That's because there's a little layer of calcification on them. If I was to take and just put a little bit of water on here, you can see how the color changed drastically. Let's do it on this one too. So things like muriatic acid and stuff like that will take this calcification layer off of the shells and help bring more of their original color back. Now, muriatic acid is fairly inexpensive. You can get 2 gallons of it in a box at Lowe's for less than $20, and you mix it at a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 ratio with water. So you're like, if you're using 4 cups of water, you use like 1 cup of the muriatic acid for making stuff to dip your shells in. So the muriatic acid that I bought, and I spent less than $20 on probably a year and a half ago, I've barely dented the first bottle. So it is a little bit dangerous to work with if you're not careful. But if you know what you're doing, you won't hurt yourself. And it's inexpensive, and I have a lot of it, so I will use it up. But so many people are now talking about these safe acids for dipping their shells with that I thought we'd give that a whirl too. And what I picked up is this stuff, a bottle of Acid Magic. And it says, cleans, clarifies, and etches like full-strength muriatic. Tested safe in all pools, no phosphates or phosphorus-containing ingredients, blah, blah, blah. All right, so I'm going to take a few minutes, get my glasses, read this tiny text all over the side of this bottle, see if I need to mix any water with it at all or what have you. I'm going to set up a little wash, neutralize, and rinse station. Now, what you neutralize with is baking soda. So I went to the dollar store and got a big old box of baking soda. The way I work it with muriatic acid is I set up my acid bath, then I set up a mixture of water and baking soda to neutralize any acid and dip them in that to stop any fizzing or bubbling or anything that's happening. Then after I put them in that neutralizer, I then put them in just plain water. I'm going to do the same thing with the Acid Magic today, since I'm not all that familiar with it just yet and wanted to try it out. But you do need, it's acid. You're going to need to neutralize it before you can dump it out. Once you've neutralized your muriatic acid, the baking soda makes it safe for you then to dispose of that acid water mixture, because you've neutralized all the acid out of it with the baking soda. And baking soda is not harmful stuff, it's just good old sodium bicarb. So yeah, that's what we're going to do to make this a safe and efficient and expedient process. Most of what I set aside were things that you really shouldn't dip in acid. If a shell is already shiny, like think a nice glossy olive, for example, or a nice calico clam that's got that nice shine on it, or a sunray Venus. You don't really want to take the acid wash to those. It will etch that nice shiny surface off of them. If they, however, are already cloudy, yucky, torn up, and you just want to, bring some of the color back, and you're not so much worried about that, then acid washing is the way to go, because this is the fastest way I've ever seen to clean shells and get really nasty ones looking really good, like seriously fast. So after reading my bottle of Acid Magic, it looks like you're supposed to be diluting this to like 1 to 4, like 4 cups of water to 1 cup of this stuff. So not that different from the muriatic, really. What I'm going to do now is measure out. We'll see, I have 2 containers here. This one says acid wash, and this one says baking soda neutralize. I've just gone on ahead and dumped a bunch of water into that without really measuring it, and it's going to get the same treatment with baking soda. I'm just going to dump a bunch of baking soda into it, and I'm going to be liberal. I'm going to put a lot of baking soda in here. I'd rather it be acid neutralized than worry about whether or not it is. I know this isn't very scientific, but I put in about 1/3 of the box, I guess, in here. And this is a 15-quart container. And I also have some plastic utensils that I'm going to use. I'm not sure if this is a pasta scoop or a cat scoop. I really don't know. I got it at the dollar store for sifting sand for shark's teeth, honestly. But it makes a good little tool, as does this pasta scoop for doing acid washing. Now, I've done a number of washes with this. I made the mistake of using a stainless steel strainer basket one time, and the acid ate right through it. So do not use metal tongs, do not use metal strainer baskets. Just keep metal away from this acid stuff, because it will eat right through it. The plastic, on the other hand, won't hurt it at all. And I'm just shoveling around that baking soda there on the bottom of that, just to get that mixed up and ready. This acid stuff doesn't do anything to plastic, so you won't have to worry about plastic containers, plastic utensils. You'll see also I've got like what I have here is one piece of a plastic shelving unit, and I just use it as a little table when I'm doing this. You'll also notice I have the rubber apron on. Oh, that's just so fun when it's 90 degrees outside and 70% humidity. That's wonderful. So you can see why I save up doing this until I've got a bunch to do, and I do a bunch of it at once, because it's hot and miserable, kind of messy work. And yeah, I don't really enjoy wearing a rubber lined apron in Florida summer heat. But it is what it is, because I don't really want to get this stuff on my my lap or anything like that either. So I've got that, and I've got a pair of safety goggles and a pair of rubber gloves that I'll be donning for this as well. Right there is my rinse bucket, and I have the hose on and ready. I'm going to measure water out of that bucket into my acid wash. Put the water in first, always. You never add water to acid. It will go and splash all over and burn you and other things around you, and it's very unsafe. Always, 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 no ifs, ands, or buts, always add acid to water. Never add water to acid, ever. Now remember, I mentioned this is rubber lined. It's already wet from my legs being sweaty. So I'm also going to take a towel and just cover myself with the towel, then put the rubber apron back over, so at least I don't have that plasticky rubber right on my skin and it's not so yucky hot. That's 20 cups of water right there, and when I drop a shell in, that's more than enough to cover a number of shells. When you're dropping stuff in the acid, you're not leaving it in here long. I'm talking seconds, literally seconds. But I want to make sure if I'm going to do small stuff or big stuff that I've got enough in there to cover over whatever it is that I'm putting in. I have 20 cups in here. 20 divided by 4 would be 5, so I'm going to go ahead and put 5 cups of this Acid Magic in there, and we'll give it a shot and see how it goes. Before I measure that out, I have a very wet cup here with water still in it. I'm going to dry that off. It's got a little bit of white glue mix on it left too from the last time I dipped urchins. So we'll just wipe all of that right off of there. Now that's nice and dry, so I'm not worried about adding acid into water, because that'll make it splash up. Seriously, don't do it. I can't stress that enough. Alright, I am going to grab my protective glasses right here. And I have rubber gloves, dishwashing rubber gloves, house cleaning rubber gloves right here. I'm going to go ahead and put those on. Pour this into here and measure out 5 cups of this stuff. Hopefully I have enough for that. I think I do. Should be. Look there in the bottom of the mixture. There's a little teeny tiny piece of shell that I dropped in there, and it's already foaming and fuzzing and boiling and bubbling away. Now, I didn't read the front of my container carefully. I thought it was a little more than 32 ounces, but it was only 32 ounces. So, add a cup, which is 8 ounces. I had enough for 4 cups, not 5. So I basically have a 1-to-5 ratio here, and obviously it's doing something because that little guy is bubbling, because I threw something in there to test. And if you want to do a test, you just take a couple of pieces, a little bit of shell crop, and throw them in there. Oh, look at them bubble, look at them go. So clearly the 1-to-5 is a pretty good mixture anyway, because they're dancing around and jumping and bubbling around in there like crazy. So clearly 1-to-5 is enough. It doesn't need to be 1-to-4. 1-to-5 will do the trick. And I'm just watching these things bounce up and down in this container, and I'm fascinated. It looks like they're swimming. Let's get to actual work though. Notice also that I took my gloves off. Number one, they're crazy hot to wear those gloves right now. Crazy hot. Number two, I don't like that I can't feel what I'm doing when I'm picking things up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work with my ladle, and we're going to put this guy in here and see what happens. Ooh, that's a lot of fuzzy. Look at that. Look at that. And wow. There we were, 3 seconds, 4 tops. Now you don't want to keep dumping the acid into your neutralized bath either, because it won't be very neutralizing anymore. So we're going to go ahead and put that in here. Rinse it around really well. Dump the neutralizer out. And at this point, since you've neutralized, it is safe to handle now. Okay, just dump that out of there. And into a big bucket of water. Rinse it off really quick, and then I want this to dry because I want to compare what this looks like cleaned up when it's dry. Let's dry this guy off so this goes a little quicker. Alright, so that's dried off. Let's see, get as close in color as we can so we can compare them. Okay, dry. Dry, dry. Obviously this one was the one I cleaned up, because look at the haze and the white cloudiness on these two. So yeah, what a difference that made, and cleaned up some of that crud that was on the inside of the lip too. Now let's just take a look at these two before we drop them in the acid. What are we going to be looking at for the inside? Oh boy, that's a lot of calcification. My gracious. Well, what I'd like to do is put them in this bigger basket and put these sides up so we can actually see what happens with all of that cloudiness on there. My gosh, look at the insides of those things now. How beautiful. Alright, we'll dump the liquid out of them. Drop them in the neutralizer. Make sure they're good and rinsed. And into the water. Oh boy. Yeah, this is working out nicely. Remember how white that was on the inside? Look at that. Most of it is removed. If I let this go for a couple of more seconds, it'll be completely gone. Takes that dullness off of them, brightens them up, and just an idea of what it was like before. That's a different shell, obviously, but you can see how vile and crusty these things are on inside those lips before they get cleaned up. So yeah, these guys are the ones that are clean, as opposed to these, which haven't. And you can see that it makes a really, really big difference. I'll try a couple of different things now. Alright, I've got 3 pretty crusty moon snails here that are pretty old. I'm going to take the big guy and drop him in. Let's see what happens. Oh, my goodness. He was super crusty after a second or so there. Get him neutralized. Rinsed. And we'll take him over here to dry him off. My goodness. So we're gonna go ahead and time lapse through a bunch of this and clean a whole bunch of stuff up and see what we get. So wow, that's a nice big difference on the turkey wings too. Now you'll notice looking at these turkey wings, these are not in fabulous shape. They were kind of rough and tumble as it was when we got them. Some of them have holes in them, as you can see here. So when I pick this one up, I usually don't cut turkey wings often. I didn't bother doing my test whether or not it would hold up to processing. I should have, because this one was so riddled with holes that when I pressed on it to dry it, a little piece crumbled out of there. That's a sign of a pretty old shell. And I knew that when I picked it up. I just didn't care, because I honestly didn't think it was gonna matter, but I didn't expect I was gonna put my thumb through it trying to dry it either. So that's all that happened there. But overall, I'm really pleased. You know, I mean, this is looking good. I've always been just so diehard Muriatic Acid and never tried something different, but this acid magic is an option, and there's also something called safe acid or safe muriatic or something like that, where it's almost like a darker brown, and you can actually get it on your fingers and it won't hurt you at all. It's very, very expensive, and I'm okay with being a little hot and uncomfortable for a little while. I saved myself 60 bucks, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with my Muriatic and my Acid Magic, because those work pretty darn well. And the Muriatic process is no different than what I'm doing. It's a 1 to 4 mixture. Just, you saw me do this 1 to 5 because that's all I had enough for. But Muriatic Acid is a 1 to 4 mixture. Again, you do the neutralization with the baking soda, drop it in a rinse bucket after, and it's pretty much the exact same process. Dipping it, neutralizing it, rinsing it, and letting it dry. Wow, so there you go. Dripping wet just out of the water, dried off, and original bleach and rinsed, but not actually cleaned up. So yeah, when they're wet, you get a real sense of what things look like. You know, actually what they're going to look like after they've been oiled and what have you. But look at these dry, how bright the color is actually on them, as opposed to these. I mean, you can get this wet and it'll make it look more colorful. But then when it evaporates, that film of calcification is still on the outside. So getting that film off of there with this stuff and then putting a little bit of coconut oil on them will really bring your shell color back, will really make them look nice for the things that you want to use them for, to display, things like that. If you're going to craft with them, do not oil, because your glues won't want to stick to any oil. They don't have any problem sticking to the shell, whether it's been cleaned or not. They don't. The glue doesn't care. But glue and oil don't really mix well. So if you do plan to do some crafting with your shells, the way I do, I don't oil until after I've already decided what it's going to be and it's pretty much done. Like after I've drilled things out and made them into jewelry, or I'm about to make them into jewelry, I'll give them a little buff with a little bit of coconut oil and a paper towel and oil them, as long as I'm not planning on gluing anything to the surface or gluing them to a surface, such as when I do a shadow box or a tree or something like that. Okay, now we're going to try something different. We have an apple murex, and not that these are, this is a light colored one, so it's not going to be as punchy as maybe, say, these guys are, but there's still color underneath there that we'd like to bring out, because that's a really nice murex. Let's drop this little guy in here, see what we get. Look at the colors that were there that we couldn't see before. How beautiful. Boy, oh boy. What a difference that made. Look how beautiful that shell actually was. Okay, so at this point you can see I've got about half of my fighting conchs here dipped, and I'm about to try something different. Let's take a crack at these whelks. Try to do this before the camera overheats again, 'cause it's quite warm outside and the GoPro just isn't happy about it. Alright, got some crusty whelks. And don't worry, those whelks were broken before. Also, if you see some, what looks like gas or smoke or anything like that coming off of them, this is an exothermic reaction. As the acid eats into the calcification, it does release heat. I'm working outside with a decent breeze, so I'm not in any danger of breathing any nastiness or anything like that. But if you're working in a smaller area, it might not be a bad idea to wear a mask if you're a little concerned about what's coming out of there. And like I said, I'm not getting a face full of it either. It's a couple of feet at least away from my head, and there's a breeze blowing it away. So take a look at that. Now this whelk is in bad shape. A boring sponge got a hold of this. You can see the little pock marks and stuff. I just want to see, is the color still there? Let's find out. Oh wow, wouldn't have guessed that. I thought maybe a little, not that much. Wow, that's cool. And in a matter of seconds, even after a boring sponge got a hold of this thing, there's still color there to be discovered. So this should give you some great ideas about saving some of those crusty shells that you find at the beach to say, oh, it's too bad it's not in better shape. Oh, maybe I won't take it home. Try it out. What's the worst that can happen? You're going to clean up other shells anyway. If it cleans up, great. Hey, you took home a shell that you got a keeper out of that you weren't expecting. If not, hey, you can toss it. Do like I do. I put mine in my my flower beds. They get too much direct sun to have anything grow. They get too blisteringly hot to put any plants in them. So I fill my little flower beds with shells. Oh yeah, there we go. How pretty. And there we go. So now you know what those look like before we did any dipping on them. Here's what they look like after, and I'm quite pleased. All right, now this shell is going to be different. This is a very white shell already, and it's going to be a white shell because it's a white base scallop. But you can see that calcified haze all over the stuff in the back and that dullness to the front. There's a little bit of stuff on here, barnacle-y stuff. So I'm going to take my pokey pick and just scrape right down those ridges. Get anything that's in there, like, you know, little barnacles or anything like that out. Like these guys right here. And all this is, guys, is a weeding tool from using a Cricut machine if you do vinyl. That's all this is a weeding tool. It looks like a little bit like a dental pick. There we go. Got a little junky stuff off of it now. And we'll just drop this guy in and see what happens. Wow. Definitely took that hazy garbage off of there. That's nice. Yeah, that looks great. Perfect. How about this crusty old cone? I can't believe it, but there might actually be color there. Oh gosh, it's still pretty calcified. I could probably drop this in a little longer, but when I see something that's been through the acid get cleaned and still be that calcified, I know it's a fossil, and I really don't think I'm going to do much more to it because I'll destroy it. However, there may be patterning under there, and we'll know if we shine a black light on it later. And look at these little beauties. There's that top off of that broken whelk from earlier. There's that really crusty old scallop that I thought was cool because it was so old. And the acid didn't really touch that discoloration in it. So that was pretty nifty to find that. And look at this little piece of tulip that really brightened up. This scallop got gorgeous. Wow. So there you go. I mean, within seconds, I'm cleaning 5-6 shells at a time. It goes quickly. You only got to dip them for maybe 3 to 10 seconds, depending on how gunked up they are. And the results are absolutely beautiful. Now, these guys have already been rinsed. They're dried. And look at that haze that you see on the others. See how that looks so dull, even though they've got color? And then look at these guys in the back. Look how much punchier and brighter they are. It's just from getting that calcification film off of there, that's it. These guys, when these clean up, I can already tell. Look at the purples on the inside of that one. And that nice purplish brown on that one. So these guys are going to be pretty. And I'm also trying to line them up the same way to make it easier to drain the acid out of them. See how I have them facing this way? So that once I dip them in the... Oops, just flipped them. Once I dip them in the acid, then I can tilt the scoop and empty the acid out of them. So that's what we're doing now. Dip these guys in here. And they're probably going to go about 5 or 6 seconds. And then I just agitate them a little. Keep things moving around in there. Oh boy, yeah. Now I'm draining that stuff out of there and I can see that purple. That is so pretty. Oh my gosh. Okay, and when we stop fizzing, we're neutral. Let's see the inside of... Oh, wow. Oh, look at that with that brown and that purple. Isn't that beautiful? So pretty. There we go. And seriously, when you neutralize them, once they're neutralized, they're safe to handle. I just put them in the rinse water to rinse the baking soda off them so they don't get a baking soda haze or something on them like that. But yeah, they're safe to touch after you've neutralized them. Boy, how pretty some of these are too. Gosh, I love that this one is a lighter color than all the rest of them. It's still got that really beautiful, colorful inside, and then this nice, soft outside. Yeah. That's really, really lovely. Here we have the things I held aside from the Lido trip to drop in the acid wash. And look at that. They look great. Brought the color up on them nicely. Cleaned off the crud and the calcifications, haze on them. So these look fantastic. All right. And here's all our great shells from our first trip to Paso Grill on Thursday following Idalia, the first day that we could actually get out to the barrier islands. And Paso Grill did not disappoint. Oh my goodness. We got an awful lot of stuff on this little table, and there's some things missing. There's another 24 baby's ears in back, along with a couple dozen large whelk operculums. And that's because I'm not going to do any dipping or anything like that on those guys. So I left those off the table in the back. Needed some more space to show you the rest of this cool stuff. Let's get started up here at the top. Some beautiful, beautiful sunray Venus clams. Look at the sizes and the colors on these guys. These are just great. We got a pile of sailor's ears. A bunch of fighting conchs. Now some of them look a little nappy, but I'm about to drop those in some of that acid magic too, so they're going to come out beautifully. We've got a couple of the giant Atlantic heart cockle, aka Van Heining's cockle, aka beach bowl. That's what these guys are back here. And we have a big pile of worm snails here too. And actually this is kind of fun because I'll show you the difference between the West Indian and the Floridas. Alright, this is the West Indian worm snail. See how it comes down to that nice, pretty regular tapered point? These are the Florida ones. I don't know what their deal is. They just grow crazy like that. So that's the difference between the West Indian and the Florida. Here we have some whelks. I did dip this one just to see how it would come out. This thing came out of the ocean practically white. And yeah, so there's still color and some beauty to these too. They'll look nice cleaned up. We have some of those paper figs, some buttercup lucines and dulcineas. Banded tulips. Got some olives here. We have a really great little horse conch. Now he's not complete, but I intend to use him for the top on a tree. So I don't care that he's not complete because he's pretty great. Love that color. These little purple lovelies are southern horse mussels. There's something about them I just love. That purple with the iridescence inside. Gorgeous. Okay, moving on. We've got some scallops here. A couple of surf clams. Nice big fat Atlantic telin with that weird potato chippy swoop on the end of it. One of my favorite shells right there. I just love finding those. Here we have some pieces of bryozoan colony. It's kind of similar to coral, which I have a piece of there. And I kind of thought this was awesome. Here's two pieces of, I'm sure, what was the same piece that had grown around a sea whip. So we have this sea whip, and they're both kind of just stuck on there because it grew through there. That's the base of what a sea whip looks like. I thought that was a really, really nifty find. Super duper cool. It's like coral a bit in its own right, and then your whip comes up out of here. This is that big piece of broken whelk John threw toward me that I thought I'd like to cut up and make something out of because I just thought the color was stunning on it. And we got a spotted slipper there, some striate bubbles, some moon snails, some in better shape than others. This one actually was quite nice with that hole in it. I love it when they have that hole in them because I come across this way and put another one over here and string the cord right through it, and it just looks so cool on. And back there we got some pear whelks, and I know they're pear whelks as opposed to lightning whelks because they open on the opposite side. They open on the right hand side, not a sinistral opening, left-sided opening like our lightning whelks are. These are the street fossils. These are the shells that we actually found shelling in the street, picking up fossils. We've got a piece of a mitra there, a niso, boring turret snail, some ram's horn snails, olives, some juvenile fighting conch precursor guys. That's what these guys here are. And then an old ancient chestnut turban, which I loved the discoloration on it. I thought that was really beautiful. Now we have some banded tulips here, and we have some apple murexes here. We've got a weirdo apple murex too. Alright, so this is what an apple murex should look like. And then look at the top of this guy. Now, he's apple murex in color and in shape every other way. So I know it's not a shell called a distorsio. Although it could fool you for that. If it was calcified and white, you would think it was a distorsio almost because of the crazy shape on it. So something happened to this guy and made him grow a little wonky, as you can see. And you can see his little friend here doesn't have any of those issues at all. A few murexes there. We've got a little drill shell and a ribcantherous shell, a jingle, nice hinged prickly cockle, which I thought was, or spiny jewel box rather. Thought that was really cool. Prickly cockles too, and I picked these two up because I thought this yellow rim on them was just very vibrant and very different. Most of the time they don't have that yellow on the edge like that, unlike their friends, the yellow cockles, who are yellow all over and they have that bright yellow rim. Normally prickly cockles don't have that, so I just like that coloring. I thought it was really cool. This is a baby giant Atlantic heart cockle before he ever grows up. Just a little fella. And we've got some pretty calico clams here. Some nice bright orange jingles, which I sort of am in love with. Two cones. One is a Florida cone. The other one is a fossil of a Florida cone, I believe. Some button snails and augurs and serifs. A little mossy arc. And about half of a lace murex, which I loved the way that this was broken. I don't know why I thought this was beautiful the way that that did that, but I want to use this one on a tree too, or maybe a shadow box. Now I got a little arc here. The only reason I kept it is because of the stripes on it. It's nothing really remarkable otherwise. Cool cayenne keyhole limpet, and a bunch of egg cockles, which there was like a recurring theme everywhere we went. Egg cockles really get washed in with these storms. Normally we don't find them in the quantities that we were at the stops we were making. And we got quite a bunch of them, and it was a lot of fun finding all of them. They have such a nice, they just feel so cool and smooth to the touch. I love touching them. Now here's a few of the baby's ears. Like I said, there's another 20 some odd of them in the back, but I've kept this one up front because I wanted you to see just how cute and tiny and little and practically see-through that guy is. You can see the blue towel right through there. That was neat. And in our weird finding pile here, all right, I have this fighting conch juvenile, which is gorgeous. Beautiful patterning, beautiful striping, just everything about that shell's coloring is great. We have another guy here who's roughly the same size, and he's had a much different story. Look at the pathology on this shell. How oddly repaired it is, how goofed up and screwed up it is. And I just love weirdo shells. I love anything like this that is unusual and one of a kind. So when I saw that, even when I found it, we got it, it was kind of grubby, and I'm like, oh, that is just awesome. Love it. Now, not on the table right now is also the Scotch bonnet that I found, which was in really haggard, rough shape. I've got that set aside in my workroom, and I'm considering whether or not I want to fill the rest of it with like a resin or something like that, just to keep what's I've gotten of it, holding it together, because it's in really bad shape. I kept it because it was a Scotch bonnet, and because I loved it because it was a Scotch bonnet, and there's such a rare find here, but it's in pretty horrendous shape. Another thing I also wanted to show off was the color on some of these fighting conchs there. That Passagrow was astonishing. Look how dark chocolate those guys are, as opposed to, our normal orange kind of run-of-the-mill fighting conch. These guys were really dark and really different. He still got quite a bit of periostracum on him, so I'm thinking he had not been expired very long. Look how dark that inside of that lip is. Man, it's almost black. That's stunning. So I just did a bunch of acid dipping for some of my other shells. I still have my setup over here, and we're going to go ahead and throw this guy in just a second and see how he comes out. Alright, so we have 4 of these guys that we're going to clean up. These 2 bigger fellas in this dark color, and these 2 smaller ones. So I'm going to put the smaller ones in together first. Pretty good. Now, I've cleaned a bunch of shells already, and this acid mixture isn't even discolored. I mean, not at all. Normally, after I do a bunch of this stuff, Muriatic's all full of brown stuff and yuck, and so I'm kind of liking the acid magic that this stays cleaner for longer, and it's still really potent too. Let me get these guys here, and man, wow, just look at the colors. Wow, 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 wow. So nice. And water bath. Now, you're probably wondering why I have such a big giant bucket of water if I'm just dipping these things in, and that is for safety's sake, in case I do something crazy like sneeze and spill acid on myself. I also have the baking soda out here to neutralize it, and then water to put on it, so make sure I don't get hurt or burned. Now, just letting you know, I've never done that. I've never hurt myself, but you don't want to find out later you need something and not have it, right? Like, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Okay, move these little guys out of the way. Put these over here. Oh my gosh. Look how phenomenal those look now. What? Man, those colors though. That brown is just wildly cool. Especially with that nice little line of white beading across the top of that whorl right there. Gosh, that is a stunner. That's a beauty, that guy. Really nice. All right, let's try the big ones next. So I dipped those two dark fighting conchs, and wow, they look nice, but there's still quite a bit of periostracum on them. I don't want to just leave them in the acid till the periostracum comes off, because I might damage the color on them if I left them in there that long. But you'll find after you've acid dipped them, sometimes the periostracum will just flake right off them when they're dry. So I'm not going to do anything else to them. They've already been in the acid enough, and we'll see how they come out when they're dry and if they need some periostracum scuffed off. So here are the fighting conchs that we dipped, and they're dried off now. And I've managed to just go like this with my finger and scrape a lot of this periostracum right off. Here's some of it flaking, like literally right off of this guy. I'm just gonna peel that right off of there, and you'll see it's thin. It's very, very papery. But yep, there's not much to it there. And it's just a little damp, and all I'm doing is taking my fingernail, just scraping it right off of there. Now, I've picked up a bunch of this stuff that I'm not going to muriatic acid. I'm going to dip some of these calicos to brighten them up. I'm going to dip those fighting conchs to brighten them up. I'm going to dip these pear whelks and those lightning whelks to get some of the haze off of them, see what we're dealing with under there. And the tulips and worm snails I'm going to do as well. Mostly because these worm snails, usually they're this kind of color, but you can see these are pretty heavily calcified. I want to just try dipping these and see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and run through some of this stuff real quick. I don't really think I'm going to do the buttercup lucines, just because they're a little thin and I don't want to, damage them at all. And most of them are pretty faded out anyway, so no big deals there. But I would like to bring the color back up on the whelks, the conchs, those two big cockles back there, the tulips, and the worm snails and the scallops. So I'm going to go ahead and dip all of that stuff and then show you in a few minutes after I'm done what things look like. So here's the before. Here's what they look like. The worm snails, that is. Go ahead and get them dipped. Wow, that's a lot of foam. Ooh, look at that. Wow, that really gave them some color. Nice. That's awesome. Wow. So almost all of them were white at the outset. And now look at that. Look how much of the color we've actually restored to these. That is super, super cool. Okay, I have two banded tulips that are in fairly good shape, and then this collection over here, which is not such great shape. We'll go ahead and dip those two, see what we get. Oh boy, that's awesome. And here's the after. Nice. Took that hazy stuff off of them. Really made that one look nice. Wow. Yep, we have totally transformed these guys. From crusty, nasty, gross to decent shells, and we'd actually be able to do something with. And these dark ones. Oh my gosh. I am in love. Look at that. So beautiful. Nice. So just one last look at everything on the table that we've dipped and really brought some color back to and brightened up. So it is worth your while to do this, whether you use muriatic acid, acid magic, safe acid. For me, this is genius because it takes seconds. I don't have to let stuff sit all day, and I don't get any bleach on myself. So I'm pretty pleased with this stuff. finds from Longboat that day. We weren't there very long. There wasn't much beach we could actually walk, so everything was washed away. So, yeah, we didn't get a lot of stuff at Longboat. We got some of the hard urchins. Unfortunately, they largely, the ones from Longboat disintegrated in the bag. We had better luck with the ones we found at Sunset. So we've got some nice fighting conchs. This is my favorite one. Big and fat and bulbous and nice orange. And even though the lip is chipped on it, I love the color. And I'm going to throw it in the acid and see how it comes out. And these guys up here being fossils are going to be left alone. Nothing to do with them, just wash and a clean, and that's it. Got some really nice lettered olives, kitten's paw, some whelks, really big dosinia. And this was a big piece of true tulip I thought was kind of beautiful, and I wanted to cut into something. And we kept this moon snail thinking that he could be cut and he was in better shape, but he's really not. So he's going in the flower bed. And then I have an unusual scallop here with some strange colors. So I'm going to take a look at that and the acid too. Oh gosh, I put that scallop in there. Look at the difference. Oh my gosh. I would not have thought there was that much color on that guy at all. Really. It went from almost just like a creamy tan to having all of this going on. That's pretty impressive. I like it. I like it. So most of this stuff isn't something, because they're fossils, that I would go ahead and clean. Just go over what it is that we've got up here. Now, you've heard me say knobless and knobbed a few times in fighting conch world. There is a divergence of what people believe. Some of them believe that this is one form of genetics and this is another. Personally, I find knobbed and knobless in modern and in fossil. I mean, look at this guy. He's got knobs. He doesn't and he doesn't. Now this one's also a bit fatter, and the angle of the way the shell comes out at the lip is a little bit different. So this is part of the Strombus family, and it is a precursor to the Florida fighting conch, but like a cousin relative, not exactly a direct parent lineage, I would think. But yes, this knobbed and knobless thing happens in fossils, in modern shells, and it happens all the time. Sometimes it happens in the same shell. I actually sent one to Charmin's auction not very long ago that was called Make Up Your Mind, because it started out knobbed and then it went knobless in the middle and then it had knobs again. So I'm not certain what causes knobs versus knobless to happen. It looks like when they all start out, they all have that beading at the top, but then we go different here. We diverge somewhere in the growth pattern up in here. We go from these little beads to where those things should start making pronounced bumps, and either they do or they don't. It could be environmental, it could be genetic, it could be species related, really don't know, but let me know what your thoughts are on that in the comments. Just gonna take a quick look at some of Sunset Beach's finds before I get them cleaned up with the muriatic acid. I want you to remember how dull these tulips, these whelks, and these murexes are, because shortly you're going to see our shell ID get talked about, and they're going to look a lot different. And here we are getting a look at some of our goodies from Sunset Beach. Now, the rest of the goodies from Sunset Beach are still in the back. That's going to be all the sand dollars and the hard urchins that we were cleaning up, so we'll go visit those in a minute because they're in a separate little area. But we got some stunning, stunning shells at Sunset Beach. All right, first of all, the coolest find of the day would have to be that starfish. And it was still purple when John found it, but it was most definitely deceased. It didn't have any little pressure, none of the movement in the legs, and it was half dried out and kind of rubber-like when we found it. So he had expired already. And all we've let him do is just sit in the sun. I haven't done anything to it, But when I am ready to do something, it's probably going to involve being coated in some sort of resin or sealant and preservative so that it doesn't fall apart. Because as you can see, as it's really starting to dry out, his little tip up here broke off. And I have to look on the towel and see if it's there. Oh, there goes another piece of them from that tip right there. So starfish are kind of hard to get home from the beach and keep too, to be honest. All right, that pile of white moon snails. Would you have thought any of them had that kind of color on them? They all went for a run through the acid bath, came out looking like that, which I thought was pretty awesome. And we had a little hinged southern mussel. One of these little guys. Oh, actually, no, this wasn't a hinged one. These are two singles. I thought this was a pair. My bad. Some worm snails and calico clams, which I'm going to just wet this calico clam so that his pattern shows better. Isn't that beautiful? That guy's a stunner. We got some fossil shells here, and there are a number of fossils at Sunset Beach, or at least there were until Idalia. I don't know if they were washing out of the dune or washing out of the ocean, but I found them there before, and of course after the storm we found some more of them there as well. And some Florida fighting conchs, including this, my extra special, bestest, most beautiful fighting conch I've ever found. I mean, come on. It's practically plaid. I can hear music from the Highland Games playing in my head while I hold this shell. It's just absolutely astonishing, the colors and the patterns on this thing. Never seen one like this. I mean, seriously, it looks like plaid. So that's probably, besides the starfish and the heart urchins, my favorite from the day. Love that guy. Here's some more of the operculums. And just to give you an idea, okay, here's a small operculum. And that's about, well, actually that one, that little tiny operculum is too big for that shell. So if that's all the operculum it takes, so it would only be about this big on this shell, where's the beasts that these came off of? Because these came off of some monsters, probably a foot long or better. These are operculums from enormous lightning whelks. So we were pretty excited to find some of those as well. And we got a nice, really glossy, pointy olive here. Seems to be formed a little different than most I found, with this very long, elongated tip on it. So I kind of thought he was nifty. Worm snails. And believe it or not, we actually found angel wing and pieces up there. So that was amazing, because that's not typically a place where we would go to find that kind of stuff. And some hinged ocinias, which are lovely, very nice. And some lightning whelks, and then most of those were looking pretty white too, and sent them for a run through the acid bath, and they came out looking nice and colorful. As did these banded tulips. Are you kidding me? These things were all chalky and rough looking when we got them, and a little quick dip really brought their color back, really and truly. I mean, most of them looked like this when we picked them up. So, yep, and look at the size of that guy. He's really, really nice. So, yeah, we got some absolutely beautiful tulips as well as beautiful apple murexes. Now, this one was only half a one, which was a heartbreaker given its size. Look at the colors on these guys, though. We got the light variety. We got the dark variety. We got another really nice big one here. Another big guy here. So, yeah, those were some pretty great finds as well. And then, of course, this beautiful little orange scallop. I'm going to get that wet so its color shows nicely, too. Oh, gosh. It's electric. Like neon. So I adore that shell. Beautiful. I'm going to get this guy wet because he's kind of delicate. Now this one broke my heart a little bit when I got home. That is a hinged paper cockle, which is really, really, really hard to come by. And it was not broken in the backside when I found it. However, it did get broken in the bag, but it's still hinged. So one side's like perfect and the other one has a hole blown out of it, and it's still hinged, which is really kind of bizarre. Sort of like that, but really bummed that I broke it, because paper cockles are hard enough to find, never mind hinged ones. Oh my gosh. Boy, what wasn't hard to find that day? is egg cockles. Look at this stack of them. And I mean, we didn't even come close to making a dent in what was there. There were egg cockles everywhere. And I mean, look at the patterns on these guys. Now this guy was a hinged pair. You can see his little hinge attachment point right here is still there, but they're fragile. And after they sit for a little while, sometimes they break if you pick them up and bend them too far. But those are just absolutely beautiful in their colors and patterns. And we've got numbers of them that are actually hinged pairs. Look at all those hinged pairs. Isn't that wild? And then we've got just some single ones back here as well. But some of the patterns on these guys were astonishing. Like this one, for example. Loved that. And then this one over here, look, it was striped. He's great. The backside's not as pretty as his top side, though. That's beautiful. And yeah, so those not easy to find generally, and definitely not easy to find hinged. Up and until this storm, we really had never found hinged egg cockles before, and of that size. So we were very, very excited about those. Something else I was excited about too. Oh yeah, there's a little buttercup lucine, a little run-of-the-mill buttercup lucine, and a long spine star shell, which we don't find those here. All his spines are broken off of them. This would typically be a Honeymoon Island find, so that was kind of unusual for us to find it down at Sunset, but still very, very cool. And now we're getting over to kind of my favorite spot on the table. All right, first of all, we have a Tellin here. I believe this is an alternate Tellin. And I just love these. I love finding these. They're such a thin, see-through little fresh. You can see my shadow moving there, back there behind it. Such a beautiful, delicate little shell. Not that easy to find them. I really do love those. As I do these, you've heard me talk about sailor's ear a lot. Those are channel duck clams. These guys here are smooth duck clams. And they are very fragile, or a lot more fragile than the sailor's ears, if you can believe that. Even though they look like they're about the same thickness, they're actually a teensy bit thinner. And they have this fun shape here on the end. And see, when the animal is hinged, that's what that fun shape does. It makes that little opening there. Looks like a little duck bill. Now you know why they call them duck clams. Quack, quack. Now this guy was hinged when I found it and intact, but again, in the bag, had a rough ride home, so part of him got blown out there. And that really unique hinging system with that almost like a little socket in there. Yeah, these are really cool. All right, coolest finds of the day. First time ever for us to find these shells. These are hinged fragile mactras. I've never found fragile mactras here before this storm. Never mind hinged. And this is another very lightweight, very see-through, very delicate shell. Let me see if I can kind of get the light behind so you can sort of see that, like how see-through that actually is. These are also super fragile, and this one has a little bit of pathology going on too, with that divot down the front and that crack. So he was a really, really cool find, but finding the hinged ones was amazing. And these guys are still connected right here. See, it's still hinged. And oh, I just broke the hinge on that. Damn it! He was still hinged too. Well, bummer. Anyway, so super cool to find the fragile mactras. That is not a common find for us or for this area. Much more typical is to see a surf clam, which is roughly the same shape, kind of, without this funky little opening that goes in on the end. But they are thicker, sturdier, heavier shells. So this was unusual and a real treat to get these and to get these guys hinged. And it was really, really cool. So, I'd have to say, I'm pretty in love with that paper cockle and those fragile mactras and those egg cockles. I still keep going back to this guy, though, because he is literally just the coolest fighting conch I've ever seen. That one is going in a place of honor on my shelf, and I have to check with my friends at the Shell Club out of Sarasota and find out if his coloring is unusual enough to be an entry in the show this year. But that I love. Now, as with the other stuff, you saw all this stuff white before I actually washed it. And just to let you know again, I did not do those. I absolutely wouldn't do those in the acid at all. I didn't do the olive. I did do the tulips and the whelks and the moons, and that guy too. No for the starfish. I didn't have to really with this buttercup lucine. It's really buttery, and once it's oiled, it's going to be nice and bright and vibrant and beautiful, as will that calico. Oh my gosh, that is maybe the prettiest orange scallop I've found in a long time. That's really a nice one. And then these guys, super amazing, super, super cool. So all in all, Sunset Beach was a wild trip. I mean, given that we had only been there days before the storm, and given what it looked like when we went back, the dune damage missing and all sorts of stuff, it's been almost a month now since Idalia came through this way. So we're thinking maybe Sunset Beach should be picked up in a little bit better shape. But yeah, Sunset Beach would have been a really great place to go for our Come Shell With Me if the dune wasn't sitting in the parking lot and if there had been some place to park. I am going to say this though. Going back up there to Sunset and trying to coordinate another Come Shell With Me event for that location. I'm going to have to scout it out for the next couple of months and see what happens as we start moving from summer into fall winter shelling, and see if the shells come back there. We've noticed a lot of things are rearranged, since Idalia, so our shelling hotspots may move slightly north or slightly south from where we're used to going. But I'll report back and let you know on that when we have more information. In the meantime, let's just enjoy these beauties. I used my acid bath all day. I washed bunches and bunches of shells. If I had done this with Muriatic, this would be looking pretty disgusting right now. But it's actually in pretty good shape. The acid is still definitely viable. And the way you test that is you just take a piece of scrap shell and throw it in there. If it's going to do its little dance up and down and keep moving around with all those bubbles and all that fuzzing, foaming, fizzing, that means that this is still a good batch of acid and still can be used. Now, because I've mixed it with water, it can't go back in the original bottle. So I got these containers with these locking lid tops. I plan to do some more of this wash and neutralize stuff tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and close these up. If I was done with this mixture, completely done, what I would do is I'd take my baking soda water and this and put them together. The baking soda being that it would neutralize the acid in this bucket. Then you go and you add more baking soda until shells stop fizzing and baking soda stop fizzes. When the fizzing stops, that means the baking soda has neutralized the acid to the point where it's not going to be harmful or corrosive anymore at that point. Now, again, to get rid of this when you are done with it. And for me, Muriatic always used to turn brown and get disgusting, and you could kind of tell when it was at its end. This is a little different with the Acid Magic, how it stayed nice and clean like this. I'm not really used to that. Again, your baking soda mixture can neutralize your bath mixture. Your box of baking soda that you have more baking soda in, if this doesn't neutralize this, keep throwing baking soda in until it does. And once you've got it completely neutralized, no more fizzing and fuzzing and bubbling, then it is safe to be disposed of down the drain. Wow! Was that not awesome? Oh, we found so much cool stuff. So much cool stuff. And geez, this is only half the cool stuff we found. This isn't even all of it. Because there's still a follow-up trip to Pass Grill that happened on Saturday following Idalia, which was a rescheduled Come Shell With Me Day, because Come Shell With Me Day was supposed to be August 31st for the blue moon, the second full moon in the month of August. Well, with that king tide raging out there and the timing of everything, it was supposed to be a sunrise thing and it was supposed to be a low tide. That did not happen. Idalia and the full moon king tide hitting together with storm surge took pretty much care of that being a possibility on Thursday. The waters were still really high. A lot of roads were open, but they maybe shouldn't have been, and a lot of beaches got closed kind of like right after that. And you'll even notice that when we go to Pass Grill for the second time, you'll see that where we were able to park on Thursday was blocked off on Saturday when we went back for the Come Shell With Me reschedule. So we are yet to go to Pass Grill again for the Saturday following Idalia, when things had calmed down and things were a little more reasonable to get to and to get around the point. And then we're going to take another side trip over to Anna Maria Island, where I hit 6 different locations in the same day, just checking on beach conditions and if there were shells anywhere at all. And was pleasantly surprised near the top end of actually near Bean Point, a little bit south of that. Got a really pleasant surprise in a place where I never find shells and had no expectation of finding shells, and it was carpeted. And that's where I found some really neat stuff, including some albino prickly cockles, which I'll be happy to show off coming up soon. I figured, since I'm going to ask you what it is you want to see, I should probably show you a little teaser of what it is you could see in either video to help you make your decision. So here's a couple of clips, both from Pass Grill The Return and from Anna Maria's 6 Spots One Day. And you take a look at these clips and decide where it is that you want us to go next, and that's where we'll go. Wait till you see what I just found. I just picked up a fistful of live tulips. Ooh, what's this? Whoa, that's alive too! No way! Oh, and it's alive! Do you guys want to see a live horse conch?
This was too much for me.
Oh my God.
It's alive.
So, did you see the horse conch first thing? Look.
It's alive. He's stuck right to that rock, so I don't want to pull it off and hurt it because he's clamped right on there. But there you go. So those will be here too. My goodness. And a piece of a tulip in front of me. And a wing oyster that's hinged. Oh, wow. Look at this beauty. Ooh, look at the color inside of that. Oh gosh, that's stunning. Oh my gosh. Okay, so here's what a prickly cockle looks like shell-wise, color-wise. Inside, look at this. We got an albinistic one here. Look at that. That's lovely. Absolutely beautiful. Ooh, I'm glad I stopped here. So, where do you want to see shelling happen next week? Would you like to see the return to Pass Grill? Or would you perhaps rather see Anna Maria Island, a new place that I normally don't find shells, and I found some pretty nifty stuff at? I am going to let you guys call it, because I'm going to put a poll on my community tab, okay? So if you go to my actual YouTube channel, my homepage, there's other tabs up top of there for videos and for shorts and playlists. There's a tab called Community. I am going to post my poll in Community tab after this video goes up, and I want to ask you all to tell me, what video do you want to see next? Would you like to see Pass Grill, or would you like to see Anna Maria Island? Go ahead and let me know in that community tab and in the comments below right here in the video, and then it will be a surprise for everybody next week what the video will be about. I hope you enjoyed all of these little tips and shell shows and identifications, and if you really if you enjoy that kind of stuff and you get some value out of that, please go ahead and hit your subscribe and your like button, and go ahead and share these videos. It really helps my channel out a lot, and I would totally so much appreciate just that. That would be amazing. My channel growth has been pretty great this year, and I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's watched my videos and who continues to return, for people that have subscribed. And I want to let you know there's going to be some more special stuff coming up soon this fall. I'm going to actually be able to offer memberships and online video classes for more in-depth on some of the jewelry stuff, teaching you things like how to assemble the shadow boxes and how to do the bead embroidery and how to do stuff like that. It's going to be a whole new thing this fall called Coastal Crafting with Mitch as part of memberships when I get that started. I have just about everything in place yet. It's a little more work to catch up before we're ready to fully go ahead with that, but that's coming soon. And before we get to that, we're going to have a lot more epic shelling with 2 more videos to come from these post-Idalia shell hauls and some of the things that get found and what gets done with them. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this amazing epic post-storm journey that we've had as far as shells and hauls and places we've been and the things we've seen. There's a lot more still to come. So, what's it going to be next week? Is it going to be Pass the Grill? Is it going to be Anna Maria? You tell me. You tell me what it is you want to see. That's what we're going to do. So as soon as this video goes live, I will have a video poll up on my community tab, so you can go ahead and let me know what you'd like to see next. In the meantime, thank you so much for coming along. Come on back to see what the answer to the question for next week's video is. See more awesome shelling, more cool stuff, and lots more fun to be had. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.